Hey, today we got a little bit more about mapping, in particular mapping for a hex crawl. So stick around. Hey folks, old man Grognard, 2 days off the North Texas RPG Con in Dallas, Texas. Had a great weekend, met some new friends, caught up with some old ones, and I want to make a shout out especially to Robin Irwin. Great, he was my roomie. He's a great guy, and he just had a ton of fun. And I hope he enjoyed himself and be back next year. I know I will. Anyway, what we're going to talk about today is mapping. In case I hadn't said it before, I hate maps. I hate doing maps, I should say. I come up with one world, and then everything else is like dungeons and wilderness. Um, I, like I said, I got the world, but I'm not really great. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. But I want to talk about the hex crawl. That's basically a world. This is not my world, but a world that looks something like that. See all the hexes in there? Those are the areas you're dealing with. Now, what you do is you plan out your world, you measure your world, and you basically got some kind of scale. And I'm not too good at that, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. But then you go to another map, something like this. This is an old Judges Guild map. In fact, they pioneered this. Now you notice the big hex in a lot of little hexes. That's because you take a hex area from here, say, around where, down in the corner here, take a hex, and then you take this and find out what your scale is and scale it and put all the detail in there. It's like zooming in on a map, which is good. The problem I have with those kind of things is I'm terrible with distances. I really am. So coming up with a scale for this, how big is your world? How big is the continent you're dealing with? How big is the hex you're dealing with? Somebody came up with was it? Somebody came up with one hex equals 300 miles on the large map, and a smaller hex equals 30 miles. That sounds kind of reasonable. It may not quite fit, and it gives you some idea how actually big that continent is compared to like the real world. I've seen continents as big as Asia, as big as China. I've seen them as small as California or something, or Oregon or something like that. But what you do is you plan it out, and you take the hex, if you want them in that area, and put some stuff in it. You got cities there, you got rivers, put a few ruins in there, a forest, stuff the characters can do. And as far as plots and adventures go, I come up with adventures like I usually do, putting the frameworks in. But I like to plan at that point, I like to plan a lot of little frameworks instead of one big overall. You might have an overarching adventure plot, but you can put if you put a lot of little adventures in there, like side quests and things like that. I'm not saying you just go with encounter charts, which you can, although I kind of think it gets kind of boring after a while. But you can say, I plan, let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sides to a hex. So I plan 6 little encounters, 1 for each direction. That sounds like a lot, but if you're just doing side quests or things like that, it isn't. And there's no reason you can't put more than 1 in, say, the north area or something like that, or stuff that links. Maybe you've got an adventure in the northwest area that links to the one in the southwest area or something like that. And who knows, you can actually maybe even do an overarching story arc for every point on the compass. And that will work. And it also helps that if you have all these, you can switch them around depending on what the lay of the land is. If you've got 2 similar areas and they go the other way. Instead of going towards the one adventure, you just take that adventure and move it to that area. Like I said, if they're similar. So that's kind of my prep for it. What happens in the game, as we know, is unpredictable because players are unpredictable, but to put it in a less adversarial tone, you're all making the story together. So that's what you got to think about when you're doing it. You can get hex maps a lot of places. Like I said, that this is the old Judges Guild one. My friends over at Black Blade Publishing make this beautiful. I picked up a couple of these in North Texas. They make these pads of paper. First of all, they do grid maps and hex maps for all kinds of games in different sizes. I usually get the ones that are about note size, like scratch pad size. But this is a set of, like, they give you 40 pages of hex, and you can break it down. One side is like they give you the north, south, east, and west rows. You can write what's in there. You can draw it. On the other side, it's the hex as it relates to the bigger map. You can put things outside the hex. Saying, okay, they're going to go in this direction. They're going to see part of the forest here or something like that. And I'm doing this thinking you can see my my pointer, but you can't. So just imagine what I'm saying. And they're double-sided that way, and they give you 40 of them a pad. They're really nice. They're not up there on their website yet, but they will be very, very soon because they debuted at North Texas RPG Con, so it's going to take them a little while. By the time, at the time of this recording, it's not up there. You may check RPG Now and Drive Through RPG because they may be there. There's also other companies that make these things. I think Richard LeBlanc and New Big Dragon Games has a whole hex packet you can get for free on RPG Now and just print out what you want. That's what I got for hexes right now. So if there's anything you want me to talk about, you want me to answer questions, I do read my mail, just there hasn't been a whole lot of it. It's oldmangrognard@gmail.com. And that's all I got right now. So, bye-bye.